When you speak, it is silent. When you're silent, it speaks. Silence is one of the missing pillars of a happy life, a peaceful life. Silence is rare, a rare treasure. If God or the universe is talking to you, you can't hear it when there's constant noise. You can't hear it when you're not listening. And they say that silence contains everything. Silence is the language of the universe. I just find it interesting how it seems to be one of the luxuries and the most elusive things in my life to find. And man, a lot can be said with words, but some can be said with silence as well. And I just find it interesting. It's like sometimes what I'm looking for doesn't come when I'm looking for it. You know, it comes when I'm just quiet. And the overactivity and the amount of noise in society and in my mind, it's like silence is worth cultivating. Silence is worth pursuing. Because when you're just full of information all the time, it's kind of like limited, right? It's limited because it's all man-made. You know, all the information, all the voices, all the thoughts, it's all coming from the mind. It's all coming from the man-made world, right? It's almost like silence. This silence is ancient and it's not created. It's not anything that we have made. Kind of contains everything, right? Without the silence, you know, you wouldn't hear me talk. It would just be noise, right? You wouldn't have music. You wouldn't have society. Silence is that thing that's beyond, like underneath, above everything. It's precious. And I think that it's the missing thing that's keeping people from finding peace is maybe they don't make time for silence. They don't seek out silence. But it contains things. It contains new ideas. It contains new perspectives. It contains a sort of comfort. Like I said, it's like the man-made world can only take you so far because, you know, we're limited by our thoughts and our words. But to really tap in and like connect with that deeper experience that's beyond everything, it's an important part of our existence. And it's undervalued, I think, and undersought, underappreciated maybe. But a life with no contact to that silence, a life, you know, neglecting and covering up every chance, it's like you're never going to find peace, I don't think, in life without that. Because when you tap into it and you connect with it, it's something beyond you, right? It's it's something that holds you, but it's this big vast thing that I'm always intrigued by. You know, it's like when I'm thinking the same thoughts every day, like I know those thoughts, they're familiar. You know, when I'm hearing the news, when I'm hearing, it's like it's all this, it's just this mind stuff all the time. And when you listen to nature, you listen to the wind, it's just nothing that we can create. It's just there and here, and it's everything. So I don't know, it's kind of an interesting concept and idea to talk about. But it's always something I come back to, is to try to make time for it. You know, they have a quote that says, most of man's problems come from his inability to sit quietly in a room alone. You know? Most of man's problems come from his inability to sit quietly in a room alone, you know? Just spending that time getting out of the mind, tapping into what's beyond your mind. The mind is limited by what it can know and what it knows. But to connect with this other realm that is always here, it's like that is to have a different perspective and have a more well-rounded view on who we are, right? And I think that maybe the silence scares us. It makes us uncomfortable to be in that silence because we feel like we get swallowed up. You know, we feel like we don't exist. When we make noise, when we constantly have noise and input and, you know, just stimulation, it's like we remember that we exist. It makes us feel real. But when we're in this silence, this eternal kind of experience, it can scare us because we're identified with our ego and this, like, what we're creating, I guess, you know? We're identified with who we think we are. And I feel like when you tap in and you experience this other, you know, phenomenon, it can scare you. And because our society is so addicted to noise and input, but that is also kind of what's making it so sick in a way, I believe, is the disconnect from that deeper reality. And it's good to connect with that. You know, it's good to connect with that which scares you, right? If you go into the wilderness and you feel tiny, that's good, right? That's good for you. I think in the man-made world, we feel big. We're surrounded by all this stuff that we created. We feel like we are kind of masters of the world. We feel like we are in charge. And then maybe when you come out here, it's like you feel small, you feel helpless, you feel vulnerable. You don't feel as important, maybe. But to me, a life without that is not worth living because it reminds me of my connection to something bigger, something that is beyond me, who I think I am. And life lived in only one perspective is limited. You know, it's good to have multiple perspectives on who you are and where you actually come from, you know? It's good to be humbled by life. So, God bless. I hope you find some silence today, just for a few minutes. Just be with yourself. Love you.